On Monday's show, we interviewed Jamie Driscoll. He's the Labour mayor of North Tyne, who's been blocked for restanding for his position because, can you believe it, he had a conversation with two-time Palme d'Or winner Ken Loach. Now, our interview was a very interesting chat. He's a very articulate guy. But after speaking to us, he went on BBC Newsnight, where everything was a bit more unhinged. Victoria Derbyshire is hosting here, and Jamie is up against a Starmer backer called Paul Richards.
No one's entitled to this candidature, and if there are better candidates, then those are the ones that the members in the North East will select to do this job. You know, if I was offered an opportunity to stand on a platform with Ken Loach, I wouldn't chat to him about movies. I would challenge him on some of the odious and repulsive things he has said.
Did you do that, Jamie Driscoll?
Over the last 25 years.
Did I talk to... Yeah, I was talking to Ken Loach about film.
No. Did you challenge him on some of his views?
No, again, I reject the premise of this. You don't turn up to a cultural event and then start talking about something you weren't invited to talk about.
Why not? Why not?
Well, exactly what are we talking about here? Are we talking... If someone wants to say Ken Loach is anti-Semitic, they should come out and say it and stop all these briefings. But I want to challenge Paul's criteria there about being good at the job. I am a sitting Metro mayor. If I'm not good enough to be a sitting Metro mayor, why has the Labour Party not taken disciplinary action? This is going to damage Labour. He's raising the argument there about, I haven't met the threshold. There is no published threshold.
It's a different job, Jamie. Jamie, it's not the job you're doing now. It's a totally different job with a much bigger constituency.
No, Paul, look, I know a lot more about the North East than you do. I'm doing this job now, mate. And I'm widely respected cross-party. I'll tell you what, Gateshead Labour Group tonight has refused to nominate on the basis of the way I've been treated. Independents have put in motions to councils.
You sound like David Brent. You sound like David Brent, somehow entitled to do the job. You know, this lot behind me, or they'll back me no matter what. The rules are there for everyone, aren't they, Jamie? For everybody, even you. Even you should obey the rules.
Now, you are showing a total disregard. If you believe in democracy, why not let the members make that decision? I'm not asking to be slotted into the job. I'm asking to be allowed to put my case to members.
You've been treated no differently from any other Labour candidate. Every other Labour candidate is asked the question, is there anything there that's going to allow our opponents to beat us up in an election? And you've not apologised for it. You've admitted you did it. It's against the rules and you know that. And now you're pretending that you've been treated differently from anybody else.
Which rule says you can't talk to a filmmaker about film? You're making that up, mate. You're making it up as you go along.
He was making it up as he go along. There is no rule that you can't have a conversation with Ken Loach about films. What I found more frustrating than that terrible guest, I had no idea who he was. Very unpleasant, he came across to me. What stuck out to me more was Victoria Derbyshire, who's the host of that show, because she said, did you challenge Ken Loach? You know, you're speaking to... Did you challenge him? Did you challenge him? On what? His opinions on anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Is Ken Loach now someone who cannot appear anywhere without being challenged on his opinions on anti-Semitism in the Labour Party? Now, I would say, no, that shouldn't be something which is a required topic of conversation when you speak to two-time Palme d'Or winner Ken Loach. And ironically, on the same day that Jamie Driscoll was challenged in that way, I got this podcast delivered to my podcast app. Now, it's called In the Studio, Ken Loach. And it was actually a pretty lovely profile of the guy. The host pointed out that Loach was one of the few directors to have won the top prize at Cannes twice. And they talked about his decision to set his last 3 films in the Northeast. That's a BBC podcast. The last of his films is about Syrian refugees in County Durham. Guess what they didn't talk about on this half-an-hour podcast? Anti-Semitism. Now, also on Monday and also on BBC, this time on BBC North East, they featured a profile of Ken Loach. Now, we're going to show you the entire 3.5-minute report, and you can watch out for that moment on this bit of output where the BBC challenged the incredibly controversial director on his thoughts on anti-Semitism.
Ken Loach, who turns 87 this month, has been coming here since the 1970s and has been invited back to show his latest feature.
How important was it for you to be able to bring the old oak to Cannes?
The Cannes Festival is the biggest event in world cinema, I think. As a place to launch a film, nothing compares to it, because people come from all over the world, people write about it from all over the world. There's no other way of getting that attention. Cannes is unique.
So How's your French, Dave? Do you want to order?
It goes as far as mange tout. I mean, that's about it. No.
Eagle-eyed film fans may recognise Dave Turner from a couple of very brief appearances in Ken Loach's last two films, I, Daniel Blake and Sorry We Missed You, both of which were set on Tyneside.
So how do you go from being a firefighter to a leading man in a Ken Loach film?
Genuinely lucky. I'm so lucky. I mean, to be in a Ken Loach film itself is an incredible honour and a privilege. But for it to be filmed in the Northeast, not far from where I've spent most of my life, was incredible.
He plays the landlord of a pit village pub in East Durham, which becomes contested territory after the arrival of Syrian refugees in the area.
There was a lot of people fought for a long time for this film to be made. So to get a film made on this subject about a community which has people coming from another culture into it is very important. I'm proud of the film and I'm proud of the people in it.
For you, for the house, how are you doing?
Also starring in the film is Claire Rogerson, a community organiser from Sunderland.
You're not an actor, are you?
No. I wanted to be part of this film because the story is important, part of an anti-racist story that also centres the experiences of post-industrial places that have just been totally left behind. At least some people are trying to find spaces of hope. My character is not too dissimilar from me. So was I even acting? I don't know.
And it's that authenticity that's brought Ken and his long-term collaborator, Paul Laverty, back to the region time and time again.
We just can't believe our luck with the Northeast. And we've just met great people, had great support, and you're nourished by the people who live there, obviously. We show that we show these communities, it's on screen, it's that accent, it's that rhythm of language. And so it's been a really marvellous way to end the third film.
Everyone contributed, the people you see on screen, the people behind the camera, the people who recorded it, the design, everyone. Brilliant experience. But how well we succeeded, I don't know yet.
We'll soon find out.
Well, yeah.
Meanwhile, back on the Croisette, Dave enjoys his last day of anonymity.
It's the red carpet very soon, the big premiere. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I'm okay at the moment. Must just be the ice cream, but...
I'm using this like a microphone. Have a good show. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Cheers now.
Oh, lovely. But I should say, we've had a problem bringing you everybody's names and the little straps on your screen tonight. Sorry about that. Tomorrow, though, we will bring you, equipment allowing, the second report from Sharuna from Cannes, where she finds out how the film was received.
Presumably it's in that second, I'm sure it's in that second package where the BBC challenged this vicious apologist for anti-Semitism instead of just doing a fawning profile of quite a good filmmaker. I should say, though, we accidentally did this profile of a raging... Ash, those two clips were from the BBC on the same day. So BBC Northeast, this fawning profile of a very well-received British filmmaker. In the evening, how dare you talk to this man about films without challenging him on his opinions on the disciplinary process within the Labour Party. Again, remember, this is a mayor of the Northeast. These are films which are all about that area. That's why it was appearing on BBC Northeast. So it seems very appropriate, actually, for Jamie Driscoll to talk to his guy. I mean, why are left-wing politicians held to a completely different standard to everyone else?
Number one, the way in which Jamie Driscoll has been treated has some real echoes of what happened to Rebecca Long-Bailey, which is there is no real reason to knock him off his perch, stop him running again as mayor. There was no real reason to fire Becky Long-Bailey from the shadow cabinet. But the accusation of anti-Semitism or being insufficiently tough about someone else's alleged anti-Semitism is seen as a watertight reason to do something which I think everyone can agree is undemocratic, unfair, and quite nakedly factional. And that's because the anti-Semitism crisis in Labour has been, I think, almost canonized in the press to an extent that you can't question any aspect of it. You can't say, well, hang on, how much of this is rooted in reality? Is it anti-Semitic that Maxine Peake thought that the Israeli police forces had taught the knee on the neck technique to American police forces, when Israeli police forces have offered training to American police forces, and both police forces have used the knee on the neck technique. You know, you could just say, oh, that's just kind of an understandable, little leap of logic of the kind that we all do, particularly when you're not a professional politician or somebody who works specifically in that area. No, 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 no. It has to be the most malevolent and disgusting form of racism, because then that allows you to do the thing that you already wanted to do, which is drum a left-wing politician out of a position of prominence. And the same stuff is happening with Ken Loach here. And I think the way in which it's being discussed on Newsnight shows you just how far removed political media has become from reality when they're discussing anti-Semitism, because Ken Loach still is one of the single greatest filmmakers that this country has ever produced. Maxine Peake is one of the finest acting talents that this country has ever produced. But because they're known to be on the left, because they are known to be really vocal in their support of Jeremy Corbyn, and because the accusation of anti-Semitism doesn't have to be, does this person think this thing? Has this person said this thing? It's, can something they've done or said or implied be morphed into evidence of concealing anti-Semitic sentiments in their heart? When that becomes the standard, well, that can happen to absolutely anybody. It can happen to absolutely anybody because the story in the media is already written. It's left-wing, anti-Semitic, left-wing politician too soft on it. And so the minute you assemble the necessary ingredients, that's a story that's going to run and run. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't have a basis in truth. It doesn't matter that it doesn't even line up to the rest of how these individuals are understood, right? What their social and cultural reality has been thus far. Political media will take it and they'll run with it, and they don't care whether it's rooted in reality or not. And I think that that's one of the most disgusting things about the way in which the anti-Semitism crisis has played out, which is it's not simply about politics, right? Which is, okay, like you do what you have to do in order to get your political project over the line. It's not about the truth, which is obviously Keir Starmer wants to rid his party of the left. He's ideologically and strategically committed to doing that. Instead, it's about lying to people, and lying to people about something really serious, lying to people in a way which makes them feel afraid if you're part of the Jewish community, lying to people in a way which makes them feel hopeless and politically abandoned if you're somebody who maybe you didn't even support Jeremy Corbyn as an individual, but those were policies that you needed and you felt inspired by. And it's poisoning the climate of political discourse. The presence of any lie in politics toxifies and poisons it for everybody.
The media coverage of this is pretty divorced from reality. They're also being fed by political actors who are incredibly divorced from reality. Luke Akehurst sits on the Labour NEC, one of the most influential members, also director of We Believe in Israel, a think tank. He tweeted this: "We can only speculate about why he, being Driscoll, thought the Loach appearance was a good idea. A cynic might think it was intended as a dog whistle to mobilise members to vote in the selection who find Loach's stance on Jewish issues appealing." A cynic might think that. A remotely normal person would think that this is because he is a mayor in the Northeast. Ken Loach is one of the most preeminent directors in the country, and his last 3 films were produced in the Northeast. And a cultural arts institution asked him to have a conversation with Ken Loach. Like, Ash, what planet do you have to be living on to think that what Jamie Driscoll was doing there was a dog whistle to appeal to the inherent anti-Semitism of Labour's membership base, instead of talking to one of Britain's most famous film directors about films which were filmed in his patch?
I mean, Michael, I don't know, genuinely, should I laugh at this or should I be really pissed off about it? Because the truth is that when it comes to the Labour right, they are as conspiratorial as they accuse the left of being, if not more. So, ooh, is it Occam's razor, the simplest explanation, or is it this one which I've cooked up in my head in which everyone is a malevolent, mustache twirling villain apart from me? I'm going to go with the latter because it's something which makes me feel important and like I'm crusading on the side of the angels. I mean, another really conspiratorial thing was a tweet by Paul Richards, who you saw on Newsnight just earlier, when he accused Jeremy Corbyn's spokesperson of lying about the fact that Jeremy Corbyn goes running. Now, that's insane. That's cooked. That's tapped. But this is how these individuals really think. They really think that people who are on the left aren't simply legitimate political actors who have a different stance on a range of political issues to them. They think that their opponents are actually evil incarnate, that there's no shred of decency or honesty or authenticity in them. What a weird way to interact with the world. Imagine if that's how you thought about people's intentions all the time. It would make you, I think, deeply maladjusted, on a personal level, maladjusted and weird.